Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Creative Writing. This is our second to last creative writing seminar of the summer. So I'm really happy that you guys are all here. I'm seeing people coming into the Q&A box. Hi, Tarini. Hi, Evan. Good morning. As always, if you guys have any questions, you can ask those in the Q&A box. Today, my plan is to kind of do a recap of what we've talked about so far this summer and also give all of you an opportunity to ask questions. We did that towards the end of our spring semester of classes, and you guys asked amazing questions that I never would have thought to bring up in a webinar in the first place. So I wanted to give you some time to do that today. Also, we're ending off our plan. Since this is the second to last class of the summer for writing, we got to wrap up our writing plan of creating stories that we're all going to put together and then share with everybody. So after today's class, I want you all to put the finishing touches on the stories that you've been working on so that I can put those all together in a document. Some of you have already shared the stories you've been writing. So if you haven't yet, today's your chance to share that and send it to me so I can start putting those together. Good morning, Arnav. Good morning, Jacob. Hi, Vivian. Hi, April. Hi, Willow. Everyone's checking in from all over the country and all over the world. Our international students are saying hi too. All right, great. So I'm going to, hi, Aubrey. Hi, Zoha. Okay, great. So let's get into the lesson here. I'm calling this today the checklist because we're going to do a basic checklist of what we've already been studying over the past few weeks. And then we'll go from there. So first off, our summer writing plan. We're going to watch these summer writing webinars. We're going to write an awesome story. Then you guys are going to share it with me to get some feedback if you want it. And then we're going to make a collection of stories. So some of you have already shared some stories with me and I let you know my feedback. Most of them were awesome. Actually, all of them were awesome. And some of you have been sending the stories back and forth. I gave you some suggestions. You shared the updated version with me. So for anybody that hasn't done that so far, you can do that after today's class and we'll get those all ready to go this week. Okay, so we started off the summer talking about just the basic parts of like, what are the basic parts of a story? And we talked about that every story has the following three things: one or more characters, goals for the characters, and a conflict that comes from opposing goals. If you weren't in the earlier seminars, ask any questions you have about these ideas we're talking about today so that we can kind of catch you up to speed. But here's some examples of those things in the list here. So here are some characters from famous stories, Harry Potter, we have from Charlotte's Web. Yeah, I was blanking on this story name for a second here. Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. So these are famous characters. They're the people in your story. Great characters have descriptions and character traits that make them stand out from every other character. They have interests or they have personality traits of like what makes you know that Dorothy and another heroine from another story are different people. What makes them stand out? It can be visual descriptions. It can be actions that they take or, the emotions that they have. But what makes you know that a character is totally different from other characters? Those are their character traits. So as we write our stories, we want strong characters that are interesting and different. Then our characters have to have goals. There has to be things that they're trying to achieve. That can be the characters trying to find the treasure. Bilbo in The Hobbit is trying to get to this mountain that has treasure underneath it guarded by a dragon. A goal in a story can be trying to escape or get to freedom. It can be like in a sports story, it can be winning the big game or winning the race. There are thousands of goals that our characters could have. And then there's always conflict. So the different characters in a story, the good guys, the bad guys, what brings them in conflict is that they want different things. really the only thing that makes a good guy and a bad guy different is whose story you want to tell and whose side you're on as the author. In a lot of stories, the bad guy just happens to be somebody with a goal that opposes our main character's goal. But like in a fantasy story, that can be different wizards, you know, or a good guy and a bad guy with their different goals. In a sports story, that could be, you know, the conflict comes from other people are trying to win too. In a story like My Side of the Mountain or other stories set in the wilderness, we talked about how the wilderness can kind of be the other character. In a survival story where you're by yourself, it's like, what's nature trying to do? Nature's trying to maybe make you not survive. So the opposing goal of the wild animals and the weather is maybe to kill the main character while the main character is trying to survive. So even if you only had one character in a story, there can still be conflict because there can be goals that oppose each other. One viewer is saying that their parent doesn't have time to send their story. Well, that's okay. I could probably walk you through the steps later of trying to send it yourself. If you're on the computer right now, I could explain the steps later to maybe put your story in an email if you want to wait after the class. But yeah, if anybody else has trouble sending their story in, just let me know and we can figure out how to do that. Okay, next up, we talked about the ideas of telling and showing. We talked about you don't need to tell your reader what something is like or how to feel in a given situation. The best writing shows the reader a situation by describing it. It's up to the reader to use their imagination to picture it and then decide how they feel about it. So in that class, we went through some examples of the difference between showing and telling. I think we all agree that when you tell people what's happening and you tell them how to feel, they don't like it as much. Readers prefer that you show them what's happening so they can feel however they want to feel about it. April asked, what does oppose mean? April, oppose means when two things are going against each other. So if, in some classic stories, like in The Hobbit, if Bilbo wants to get the gold from underneath the mountain, and there's a dragon underneath the mountain that's guarding it, those two characters oppose each other. One person wants something, and another person or character wants to stop them or wants to get the same thing. But when two things are going against each other, it's called opposing, or that state is called opposition. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if we need any more explanation on that. Okay, yeah, another viewer is saying that they don't have an email to send in because their parents are working right now. Yeah, it's okay. You can send your story in later too. It doesn't have to be right now, but it could be this afternoon or tonight or tomorrow or whenever. If you could just email in your stories, and you don't have to, by the way. If you're working on your stories and you've been enjoying writing, but you don't want to share it with the group, it's totally fine. But if you do have an opportunity to email it in and you would like it to be included in the short story collection we're making, I can help you find a way to send that in. So, all right, awesome. Kaori, I will share on a slide a little bit later, I'll share that email address so that everybody can write that down or take a picture or whatever you need to do. I'll be sharing that as one of the last slides. So, yeah. Leia and Cian say, opposition could also be when two characters want the same thing and there is a conflict between them to get what they want. Yes, absolutely. Like in that picture we have there of the people in a running race. These two people racing here, they just both want the same thing. They both want to win. In this kind of story, probably neither person would be like a bad guy, but they both want to win. So there's conflict. They're opposing each other because only one person can win. And who's it going to be? All right, so going back to showing instead of telling, here's some of the examples that we looked at. So telling would be saying something like, I heard footsteps creeping behind me and it made the whole situation scarier. Well, in an example of telling like that, you're just telling your reader that it feels scary. But why? Or what is that like? How can we actually show our reader what's happening so they can kind of feel that scariness for themselves? The opposite example is crunching hit my ears from behind, accelerating the already rampant pounding of my heart. So that's a way of showing that the person feels scared instead of just telling them that the character is scared. What are other ways that we could show that a person's scared? Maybe say that they're breathing quickly or their eyes were darting around. There's a lot of ways that people look when they're scared. Showing instead of telling, it's kind of like you're activating the reader's senses. You're telling the reader, instead of just how they feel, you're telling them what things look like, what they sound like, what they smell like, what they feel like, and you're letting the reader kind of experience the feelings for themselves. So here is another example. She was my best friend. I could tell her almost anything. That's a lot of telling. We could show it by saying, I met her at the town square, running in for our usual hug that carried on for far too long as we gushed about our lives with smiles lighting our faces. So the showing example, it doesn't actually even say that they're friends, but you can tell that they're friends because we're showing you what somebody standing there watching this would see. I see one viewer is clicking the raise your hand feature. We just use the Q&A box. So Hadia, if you want to type your question in the Q&A box, I'll be able to help you answer. Zoha, yes, you can send it in. And if you don't want me to share it with the group, that's totally okay. I can just read your stories and give you feedback. But yeah, if you don't want it shared out with anybody else, just say that in your email and I'll just read it and we can just talk about your story, but I won't send it to anybody. Oh, Mackenzie's writing an entire book. That's really awesome, Mackenzie. I'd love to read it when you're done. And yes, if you have any questions, just type them in the Q&A box. The raise your hand feature doesn't really do anything in the way we have it set up, but I can see all your questions here as they come in. So, okay, great. So after the class where we talked about show, don't tell, we moved on to some basic writing rules. We talked about some of the basic things that you need to write sentences and paragraphs that people understand because they follow the basic English rules for how sentences and paragraphs are supposed to look. So here's all the rules we went through. We want to begin every sentence with a capital letter. This is what a lowercase e looks like. This is a capital E. So as we're writing, make sure that all of your sentences start with capitals. And all of these rules, by the way, are based off of like the most common mistakes we make as, beginning writers. So some people might be saying, of course, I always capitalize my first letter, but you might be surprised at how often we actually forget. I've in my own writing, sometimes I'm editing it, I'm reading it back over, and I say, how did I miss that? How did I not capitalize that? Great. Our next writing rule: end every sentence with a period, a question mark, or an exclamation mark. This sentence ends with a period. This ends with an exclamation mark. Does this end with a question mark? Yes. So as we're writing, we have to make sure that not only do we start the sentence with a capital letter, but we end it with one of the normal ending marks. In most of our writing, we're going to try to avoid ending sentences with like a lot of ... That can tend to get overused. And we also want to avoid doing like a lot of exclamation marks, a lot of question marks. Honestly, just using one is enough. It's more of like an internet thing to put like a ton of exclamation marks after something. When you're actually writing, one exclamation mark will get your communication across just fine. All right, next. Put quotation marks around the things characters are saying. It's really important to do this, Corey said. There you go. I'm quoting myself. Stories can get confusing if you don't use those quotation marks. It can get confusing for the reader to try to figure out what are the things that people are saying what things are your characters saying, and what things are the author saying? Well, quotation marks are the main way you show that to your readers. Mackenzie's putting an example in the Q&A box of lots of exclamation marks. Yeah, you can do that there, but just not in your story. Okay, rule number 4, write using paragraphs. Don't let your words run on and on and on and on and on and on without any breaks. So this is an example of not using paragraphs that I just made up. I'm just kind of blathering on here. Visually, it's tough to read paragraphs like this in a story. If you just do giant chunks of text with no breaks, the reader can kind of lose track of where they are. They can accidentally reread lines because there's not enough something being broken up for them to see. You want to give them paragraphs that they can easily and quickly read through what you're writing. Hadia, if you have access to the Q&A box, you should put your question in there. The raise your hand feature, I'm sorry to say, it doesn't actually do anything the way we have Zoom set up. So I can't help you unless you put the question in the Q&A box. So let me know if there's anything I can help you with there. Okay, our last rule here is check your spelling. This is one of the hardest rules. The reason this can be tough is because a lot of words can look the same or sound the same, like there, and there. There's 3 different spellings and they mean 3 different things. Even when we have spell check programs, sometimes they're not smart enough to spot when we use the wrong word or we use a word that sounds like the word we're trying to say. So it's worth your time to get really good at spelling. The other thing about spell check programs is if you don't have any idea how a word is spelled and you type it, a program like Microsoft Word or Google Docs isn't necessarily going to be able to give you the correct spelling if you're not close enough. Sometimes if our spelling of a word is pretty close to the right word, a writing program will go, oh, you're trying to write this, and they'll give it there as a suggestion. But if it's not even close enough, the program can't tell what word you're trying to say, and it'll just give you a little red squiggly line underneath. So it's worth our time to get good at spelling, to learn how most of the common words are all spelled, so that even if we make a little mistake, our spell check programs will be able to help us fix it. All right. Yeah, and Aaron has good advice here that when we're done writing our story, you should recheck it. That's pretty much the last piece of advice there on the basic writing rules is we should write in drafts. That means a lot of beginning writers, we write a story, we go once through, and then we feel, that was good, we're done. And we turn it in or we give it to our friends or family or our teacher to read. But we really have to write something and then go back and work at it because that's where a story usually can get really good. You might, as you write multiple versions of a story, you might think of new things that you didn't even know you wanted to put in the story originally. You'd be surprised, rereading your own story, you can get really inspired. You can spot places where more interesting or fun stuff should happen. It's kind of like sometimes if you write a story, then you set it down and you don't look at it for a week or 2 or a month or more, you come back to it and you read it and it's almost like it's fresh. It's like reading somebody else's story for the first time. You give yourself sort of the space to, it's kind of like it sits in the back of your mind, and it's like tea that's steeping and getting more delicious the longer you leave it in the hot water. Just writing something once and turning it in, it can kind of just be like hot water. You haven't really given it time to really get good. And also those basic writing rules, when we first write something and we just kind of put all the words down the page, and you're just in the fresh creativity of thinking through all the stuff you want to have happen. it's totally okay, but it's normal that we don't pay as much attention to our writing rules like grammar and punctuation and spelling. So that's why it's okay to just kind of get your story on paper, and then you can go back and fix that kind of stuff on your second draft or your third draft. But each time you go back and work on your story again, it's kind of like, to use a completely different analogy this time, that you've carved something out of wood. And each time you go back through, it's like you're sandpapering it and you're polishing it and you're making it better and better. Your first draft, you're just like roughly carving it out. If you turn it in, it might have splinters and it might be kind of rough and not look exactly like you want it to. So give your story the time to go over it and smooth it out and take off the rough edges and fix the little imperfections. And then you can get a story that you're really proud of. Oh, okay, Hadia. Thanks for letting me know. If you do have any questions, yeah, we'll just keep on putting it there. Zoha asks where we can find these videos later. So after we do our webinars, the whole time we're doing them, we record them and then we put them up on YouTube, usually within a couple days of the class. So if you go to Delphian's YouTube channel, you can actually go back and watch like all the writing classes we've ever done. They're in a playlist. Or if you like space science, you can go back and watch all the space science ones that we've ever done. And yeah, it can be kind of fun to go back and like see the whole history of all the space science or all the writing or all the music ones that we've ever done. Okay, great. So now we have, let's see, we have a little bit over 25 minutes left in the slot. And like we did at the end of the spring, I wanted to open it up for you guys to ask your questions. You can ask it on anything we've covered in class in the past, or just anything else about writing you want to know. Let's take this opportunity to anything you're curious about or anything you want to improve, or just really anything you want to know about that's in regard to writing. Let's go over it right now. Aaron, no, this is not live on YouTube right now, but the Zoom software is recording this and then we upload it to YouTube after. It's usually within a day or two of this class. You can then watch it on YouTube. And I think we're up to date of all of our previous classes should be up there on YouTube already. Kayla asks, do we have to draw a picture inside the story? No, if you want to, you could include that, but no, what I'll be putting together is you all send in your stories and I'll be taking the text of all those and combining them all into one document. So it'll say, you know, the name of your story and just your first name, and then it'll just be the story, and then it'll be the next person's short story. So it'll be a collection of those, but I don't think I would have a good way to put illustrations in there. So we can leave those out. You know what, I just changed my mind. If you want to put an illustration in there, include it, and I'll try to find a way to put those into. I think it'll be more fun with illustrations if you want to make one, so go for it. Vivian and AG are asking about the background. Yeah, it's not exactly a writing question, but that's fine. I'll turn it off for a second. This is what's called a green screen. We have the wall behind us here painted green, and what there is the software that we use to make these webinars. It has basically instructions that it takes the video and it looks for anything that's green, and then it puts, instead of green, a photo there. So I can pick a photo like this one. I just like this photo of the moon and the earth behind it. And I'm telling the Zoom software, look for anything that's green. And instead of showing green, show this picture. And it looks like that. And it's kind of funny sometimes if one of our teachers accidentally forgets and wears a green shirt that day, well, the software sees that green shirt and goes, oh, that's part of the background. And it'll make like the shirt look like the background too. So that can be fun. And also this, I do not believe, this is not a real picture. This was kind of a composite. It means that they took like maybe a real photo of the Earth and maybe something real from the moon. They kind of put them together. This is kind of a created picture, not something that somebody actually snapped. Oh yeah, Carrie asks about our email address. Okay, let me pull up that slide. Okay, so when your story is done, or you would just like me to read it, or you're ready for some feedback, you can email your story to online.learning@delphian.org. And if you do not want it included in the short story collection, say that in your email. Or if you do want it included in the short story collection, say that in your email so that I know what to do with your story. If you just want me to read it and give you some feedback, we can do that too. That's totally fine. When do we have to send the stories in by? Addison, let's say probably, let's try to send them in by like Tuesday, I think. Today's Friday. Let's try to send them in by Tuesday, just so I have time to make the collection. I'm going to be putting them all together in a format that I can email out, and you can all like download or print or share it with your family or do whatever you want with it. But I'll need a little bit of time to put that together. So let's say Tuesday is the deadline. April says that she's going to share her book, The Pirate Land, with her family first, then her friend, and then she's going to send it to me. Thank you, April. That's awesome. All right. Ying has a question here. How do we know it is the right place to break in a paragraph? That is a great question. Thank you. I'm going to close this slide. And if you guys want to see this email address again later, just let me know. Okay, so paragraphs, the rule, Ying, is every time a new character talks, you should hit the enter key and start a new paragraph. And when I say new character, I don't mean like they're totally brand new in the story, although you should do it there too. But if there's a conversation between two characters, every time one of those people speaks, you hit enter and you start like a new paragraph. So in that seminar, we used the example of Peter and Wendy from Peter Pan. Peter says something, the author hit enter and started a new line. Wendy says something, they hit enter and start a new line. So in most books you've read, you'll see that every time, in a back and forth between characters, it's a new line every time a different character is talking. Now, if you're writing a section where nobody's talking, you just have to kind of decide for yourself where each new paragraph should be. One way to do that is to think in basically just topics. Like if I'm going to maybe describe somebody cooking dinner for a big group of people, and they start out in the kitchen, my first paragraph might be about the person getting all their pots and pans and supplies out. And then if I'm going to talk about them going over to the stove and starting to turn the burners on, I hit enter. I start a new little paragraph to describe the new thing going on. You can kind of start new paragraphs based on like things happening in the story, but you also just want to look at it and look at it visually and just know that if the paragraph is getting too long, you should make a paragraph break in it somewhere. You just have to think with, you want it to be easy for your readers to read, and just spot big chunky paragraphs and say, oh, that's too long. I'm going to need to break that into more paragraphs. I hope that helps. Let me know if you need any more info on that. Yes, another viewer is asking, yes, you can just share your story with me and I'll give you feedback, and I won't share it with everybody else. That's totally fine. Zoha asks, is there a specific age group we are targeting? If you're talking about the stories that we're going to share with everybody, no, there's not really a specific age group. I mean, you can write your story for really whatever audience you want. I would probably just ask if I'm going to share it with everybody. We'll try to keep it, not being anything too inappropriate, if that makes sense. All the stories that everybody's shared with me have been great so far. I could give you feedback on a story if you had a lot of not age appropriate stuff in it. I could still give you feedback. That's over to you. I just probably wouldn't share that with the rest of the class. Mackenzie, yes. My plan is to take all the stories that people want to share, and I'm going to put them all in one like document. It probably won't be as big as a book because I just don't think we'll have that many stories, but it will be something that you could like print out and you could like staple it together and kind of make a book out of it if you wanted to. I'm calling it a short story collection, which is just a way of saying it'll be one thing that you can print and that you could read that'll be kind of like a book. It'll just be a lot shorter than a book. Hadia says, I like to write funny jokes and comic stories. That's awesome. That's really cool, Hadia. You say shares the tip. Are you saying you want some tips about doing that? Now, if you're talking about like you're writing a story that has a lot of comedy, or you're actually talking about like writing like a comic book, just let me know. And if you're saying you want some tips on one part of that, just let me know like more specifically what you want to tip about. I'll try to help. Ian, no, you don't have to share your story if you don't want to. I thought it would be fun, so everybody who wants to share a story, I'll put them together and send them out. But if you don't want to, that's totally okay. You can send something in just for me to read, or you don't have to send anything in. Totally up to you. April, I will be basically just, I'm going to take you guys can share your writing over Google Docs if you know how to share a doc. You can just copy and paste your story into an email, and I can pull it out of an email that way. Really, whatever way you want to send it, it's totally fine. You can send it in an email. If you know how to, you can attach like a Word doc to an email. You can paste the story into the communication box of the email itself. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to share it. If, try a way. If it doesn't work, just email me and let me know, and we can try a different way. Mackenzie says, Tuesday, oh no. Yeah, I mean, next week is our final class, and I think I want to have this ready to go and sent out to all of you before the final class, so everybody can like look at it and maybe have it before the final class. Vivian asks, with quotation marks, do you put a comma after you finish what the person said? Sometimes. If you say like, let's go to Neverland, Peter said, then yes, you put a comma and then the quotation mark. If it's just like, let's go to Neverland, you would put a period and a quotation mark. If you're not saying Peter said or Wendy said or something like that, you can just end the sentence there with a period or an exclamation mark and put the quotation mark. But if you're going to say Wendy said or Peter said, you do need a comma before the quotation mark. A few viewers are saying that they don't feel like that's much time. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, but I'm going to need time to put it together. So we've got the whole weekend. We've got Monday. We've got Tuesday. Let's just try to get our stories to a good place in the next 4 days and the rest of today. If it's not everything you wanted it to be, well, maybe it can be the start of a story, and it can say to be continued at the end. That'd be fine. Yeah, and if it's not like perfect or the very, very best that you wanted it to be, that's totally fine too. We're all writers that are practicing. We're all trying to get better, including me. It's just fun to read other people's writing and it's really important to get your writing out there and to let other people read it. Yeah, so let's just take these next 4 days and do as much as we can. Willow says, you want to ask a question? Go for it. Yeah, type it into the Q&A box. You're very welcome, Ying. Mackenzie will be gone on Tuesday. Then try to send it in before that. You could send it in today, tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, just as soon as you can. If you sent it early on Wednesday, maybe I could still fit it in there too. Zoha, if your story is kind of targeted towards grades 4, 5, and 6, that'd be great. That'd be totally fine. I think a lot of our viewers are in that age group. So the people that that we're going to share it with, your fellow classmates here, I'm sure that would be fantastic. Mackenzie, since you really want your story in the collection, just try to send it any time in the next 4 days. It doesn't have to be on Tuesday. You could send it on Monday or send it over the weekend and I'll still get it. It'll be fine. Addison with a great question. How do you pick what the title should be for a story? That is a really good question. I find titles very difficult. When I'm writing a story, I normally don't try to come up with a title before I write the story. I usually don't pick a title until the story's done. For some people, the title of a story might be really easy. I actually find it really tough to think of a good title because you want it to describe your story, but you want it to like stand out. You don't want the title of your story to be boring. You want it to be interesting, but not too long. I would say if you can't think of something really good, think of something that describes it. If you have a story about time travel, and you can't think of something that like is really cool and funny and fun, you can just call it Our Time Travel Adventure. Then at least it's descriptive and people know what they're getting into. Because if somebody just wants to read like a romance story and they see it says Our Time Travel Adventure, they'd be like, oh, this is probably not the story I want to read. But if it said My Romantic Adventure, then they would go, oh, that's the story for me. Ananya, a story that's a bit scary should be totally fine. Send it in. And if you draw illustrations, yes, I will try my best to fit those into the story collection too. Ananya, I can't wait, by the way. I love scary stories. I'm a big fan, so I'm really excited. Aaron has the start of a story. That's awesome. Aaron, can you just write more over the next 4 days? I mean, even if your story is really short, that's totally okay. We don't really have a minimum or a maximum word count for these stories. If you have something that's 10 pages long, that's great. If your story is 1 page long, that's great. I just want to share what everybody's been working on. So yeah, just do your best. Vivian asked about commas and quotation marks again. So you put the comma inside of the quotation marks. Let me see if I could. Here, I'm going to send you a message where I show you an example so you can see what I'm talking about. But I'll send that. Yeah, I'll just type that up for you, Vivian, so you can see. There we go. And that should be I'm making this a public answer to Vivian so that everybody can see it. There you go. All right. Mackenzie, don't worry. I think you have 4 days. There should be plenty of time to write a story, finish a story, or even start a story. Just do your best. Don't worry about it. And if you don't have time before Tuesday, just send it in as soon as it's finished. I'll at least be able to read it, even if we don't have time to put in the collection. But I bet you'll finish it in time. I think it's going to be great. Yeah, April, you can ask your mom how to send a Google Doc if she knows. If you don't know and they don't know, you can always just put it in an email, like in the text box of the email, and just email it to me. I can pull the story out that way. So Hadi is asking for tips about writing a comedy book. Well, my advice would be you still want to do the main things that we were talking about. You should still have characters. You should still try to write. You should still try to have a conflict. Your characters should still have goals. But for a comedy book, I would say try to get your characters into really ridiculous situations. Try to get them into tough, funny situations that have kind of funny ways of getting out. And I can't tell you off the top of my head for your story what those situations would be. But I think a lot of the funniest books I've ever read, the characters just get into really silly or ridiculous situations that they have to get themselves out of. And it's really funny when people find themselves in sort of weird encounters or like, it can be kind of awkward or embarrassing situations. It can be funny to read about how the characters figure out what to do. So yeah, I hope that helps. If you want to email me with more specifics about like what you're writing, I could give you more detailed feedback or some tips on what you're writing about. Addison asks, even after the classes are done, can we still send them to you for feedback? Always, yes. My email address is always open. My door is always open. If you want to send, even after these classes are over, when the summer classes are over, we're going to take a break and then we'll be back again in the fall with more classes. Kind of like in the spring we did classes, then we took a break and we were back for the summer. We'll take a break and then we'll be back in the fall. So always just email me anytime you want any feedback on your stories. Even if we didn't do a creative writing class that week, just send them in. I love reading your guys' stories. I love giving you feedback. Leah and Cian say that they counted in my art class yesterday, and Isabella and I said, yeah, approximately 100 times. Yeah, I believe it. Zoha, great question. Zoha says that they have a lot of people talking in their story, and it's kind of annoying saying Sarah said, Joe said. Usually you only need to do that at the start of a conversation. So it could be, let's go to the restaurant, Sarah said. Then you could have, yeah, but let's not get hamburgers, Joe replied. And then if you have Sarah reply something back, you don't need to say Sarah said, because the reader will understand that's a two-person conversation and they can usually keep track of the two people saying things back and forth. Now, what helps with that is making your characters sound different from each other. If you're reading through a conversation and you're getting confused about who is saying what, it's probably because your characters sound too much alike. You can do a lot of things to make your characters sound different. Maybe one of your characters always speaks in like really short sentences, like they don't like to talk very much and they say no, yes, a lot. Maybe another character has like an accent, like they say y'all and other, kind of countrified things a lot. So you can give your characters distinct voices, even in a story that you write. You can make them sound different, and then you don't have to say Joe said, Sarah said, Joe said, Sarah said. Like your reader will be able to follow along and figure it out. That was a great question, Zoha. Let's see, April, yes, we're gonna try to finish our stories by Tuesday and send them in. If you plan to write a lot more, that's fine. You can just try to, find a good place to wrap it up by Tuesday. And then you can keep on writing it. We'll put it in the short story collection if you want, and we'll just keep on going. Oh, Mackenzie says she's leaving for somewhere on Saturday. Okay, well, why don't you send in what you have today? Maybe try to polish it up and send in your story so far today, and we'll go with that. Nancy, no, you don't have to use a specific topic. These stories can really be about anything. A lot of students have been working on these stories throughout the summer, and they're on so many different topics. It's awesome. So yeah, no specific theme needed. So yes, you can send more throughout the school year. Totally fine. Yeah, I'll be here at this email address, through the school year. You can send in stories or ask for writing advice whenever you want. I would love to get your questions or stories or anything you need, whole year. April, yes, you can send in just the part you've already done. You don't have to finish it by Tuesday. You can kind of just finish off what you've already written. Hadi asks, can we write more than one story? Pick your favorite story that you've written. Let's do one for this collection so that everybody kind of gets the opportunity to share one story in it. Okay, so a lot of people have to leave. I have to go too. We're out of time. If you have more questions that I didn't get time to answer today, send them to me in an email. So yeah, I'm just looking really quick if there's anything I can answer really quickly. Aaron, I don't have time to read your story out loud to everyone today, but we could put it in the short story collection. So I will see you all. Actually, I'm going to be teaching the next class today too. So if you stick around, I will see you all in 15 minutes for our next class. And then Dylan will be teaching video game coding this afternoon at 1:15 Pacific time. So bye to everybody. Bye if I don't see you in our next class. If you are sticking around, see you soon. All right. See you guys next time.